All right. I guess we should get started, Rob. So,
Sure.
for everybody that's attending, this is Rob Lydick. He's a meteorologist at Penn State and also the producer of WeatherWorld. Very much involved with the comm department here. And Rob, it's an awesome time to let you on, and I'll let you take it away from here.
Great. Am I able to share my screen?
Should be, yeah.
Is it under apps? No, I actually don't have the button to share my screen, Kevin.
You don't? Is it too skinny? Like you have to make the window wider?
Oh, here it is.
Okay. Good.
Okay. My apologies. I feel like this happens every time I Zoom. Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm used to doing these in the mornings. Thanks for joining us today for the forecast discussion on this cold Valentine's Day. Mother Nature's got a cold heart because temperatures started off in the teens and single digits, and actually some parts of Northwest PA were below zero this morning. I'm going to take you through a few things. I always like to start these off with an interesting tidbit or look at some climate stats. I was going through on Facebook today. There's actually a Facebook page called This Day in Weather History. And this paragliding accident was actually posted on there from Valentine's Day in 2007. It was actually a German paraglider that was sucked up into an ascending cumulonimbus cloud during a flight. And eventually she was there, according to her gauges here, went all the way up to an altitude of 32,000 feet. And so she eventually landed 3.5 hours later, still alive, according to these news reports coming in out of Australia. She passed out due to lack of oxygen and flew unconscious for up to an hour covered in ice. So pretty extreme situation. I've honestly never heard of this story before, so that caught my eye. And the fact that she experienced it and actually stayed alive, she lives to tell about it, was really remarkable. A little bit more into climate stats on this state. Brian Bretschneider is the state climatologist for Alaska, and he just tweeted this graphic out as I was kind of preparing for this briefing today, and I thought this was remarkable. So February 13th and 14th in 1899, possibly the two coldest days on record for the lower 48. And here's a look at the lowest temperature observed from over 2,000 stations, at least based on the data that he has available. And you can see even here in Pennsylvania, some of the lowest readings going down to -20, -30. Look at parts of the northern plains and the Rockies there, -30 to -40, or over or under, I guess, -40. So pretty extreme. I actually want to do a little bit more research on this. I would be curious to see what the observed lows were here at the State College Co-op observing site. A little bit closer to home, this is a look at some Valentine's Day climatology, because the co-op site is, you have to put yourself in the 12Z to 12Z mentality. I kind of wanted to look at some of the records for State College in particular. So we're looking at record highest and lowest in terms of temperature, snowfall, precipitation. So the snowiest Valentine's Day on record here, likely coming in with over 6 inches there in 1973, over 2 inches of rain in 1984. 66 was the warmest. Looks like the record low comes in at -7 back in 1943. So although today was a cold start to Valentine's Day, it won't go down as record breaking by any means for the State College Co-op site. And sticking with climatology just a little bit longer, we are now at the halfway point through the month of February. And so it's kind of good to get that perspective on where things stand here in PA and across the Northeast. So in terms of precipitation, you can see we've actually been running a bit above average for the month so far, kind of that swath of rain that we picked up just last week, evident here from southwest to northeast. So departure from normal precipitation, some of these areas in the blues running about 1 inch above average for the month of February so far. Departure from normal temperature comes in actually just slightly above average. If this would refresh, looks like the site is down, but it comes in just slightly above average, believe it or not, despite it being cold for the most part. Now, we did have a little bit of a sneaky snow that moved in over the weekend. It actually brought the biggest 24-hour snow total to the city of Allentown for the winter so far. They picked up 5.1 inches of snow in Allentown from that sneaky coastal system that moved through Saturday into Sunday. This is a look at 48-hour totals. And so this actually includes some of the dusting that we had from that weak trough that moved through last night. So we had about a dusting here in State College. I talked to my parents live in Blairsville, Pennsylvania. So near the Laurel Highlands, right on 22 as you're going towards Pittsburgh. And they had about an inch of snow when they woke up this morning. So a little bit of light snow to kind of kick off this week. We are certainly starting things off with winter. But by the time we go to the middle of this week, it's going to feel a lot more like spring. So we're going to talk about that in today's forecast briefing. This is that total from Allentown. I don't know if you can see it, but 5.1 inches coming in from that sneaky snow over the weekend. So for a view of kind of a snapshot of what some of the lows were this morning, some of the places actually in the Northwest Plateau, they did drop below this reading when they bottomed out a little bit below zero. We came in the teens in State College, even upper teens in Southeast PA. And we haven't really rebounded a whole bunch out there, as most places are coming in the teens as of 1:30. It's been pretty gusty. We've had some wind gusts, anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per hour. And so wind chills, I know my walk into Walker Building was less than good, as some would say, or unpleasant, with those wind chills feeling like it's only in the single digits. It feels like below zero across the Northwest. And I think we're going to see wind chills probably near zero or just below in some of these parts of PA as we go through the overnight hours and into tomorrow morning. So here's a look at where we should be for this time of year. Average highs in PA go anywhere from the mid 30s to mid 40s, lows or mid teens to upper 20s. And so we're starting this week off with, temperatures that are 10 to 15 degrees below average. But by the time we get to Wednesday, and in particular Thursday, and even to begin Friday, I think we're going to be like 10 to 20 degrees above average before things really come crashing down behind a pretty potent system that's going to bring us a good dumping of rain, I think, Thursday into Friday. So today's satellite perspective shows that we had some clouds, some snow showers to begin the day that have diminished for the most part over some parts of the Laurel, some cloud streaks. You can see the ice coverage right now on Lake Erie. Notice these last couple of frames here. I don't know if this is actually a ship that's breaking up the ice, but you see kind of this line that forms. Really interesting to see that. And you can see the snow cover in Southeast PA from that sneaky system that moved through off the coast this weekend. Ice coverage right now across the Great Lakes coming in about 42%. You can see Lake Erie is pretty much all covered with ice. After seeing kind of a rapid decline in ice concentration last week, that's some good melting when we did warm up there into the 50s. It's on the rise again. So the latest OBS coming in with about 71% ice coverage on Lake Erie. Keep in mind, it usually maximizes or peaks right around the end of February. All right, moving on to radar. So going back to Sunday, you can see that snow that moved through parts of eastern and southeast PA, and then some of the flurries that we had overnight that brought, a light dusting here to State College and some parts of the Laurels, but we're generally quieting down now with an area of high pressure building in, and that's going to provide for a pretty quiet start to the work week before we start to rebound nicely in terms of temperature come Wednesday. Here's our surface setup right here. This weak little system over parts of the Midwest and plains is going to fizzle out and die. Our system that we're going to be watching, actually the energy associated with it, is just now coming in across the Pacific Northwest. And I think it's going to bring a variety of threats across the eastern US. So we're talking by the time this eventually picks up some Gulf moisture, and we see a series of low pressure systems kind of ride right along that boundary, and some cyclogenesis occur across kind of like the Texas, Arkansas area. I think they're going to have a threat for some severe weather here as we go into probably Thursday. And actually, they're going to have a heavy snow threat across some parts of the Midwest, with, I think, Chicago right now in the bullseye for a lot of the ensembles, suggesting that they could pick up about 10 inches of snow from this particular system. So let's take a look at the models. This is a look at the 12Z GFS. And so things generally quiet here the next couple of days. Temperatures are going to drop down likely into the single digits and teens as we go through tonight. We'll probably have some high clouds or some partly cloudy skies overhead as that area of high pressure builds in. Tomorrow's looking generally quiet. I think we're still going to be probably about 5 to 10 degrees below average. So highs here in State College, probably near the freezing mark. Maybe upper 30s in Southeast PA, but generally a pretty quiet pattern. But we're going to be experiencing this pattern shift as we finally get rid of this trough across the eastern US and we start to see some ridging build in here towards Wednesday. And so things really start to warm up. I think highs probably on Wednesday are going to rebound nicely into the 40s. So we'll actually start to climb above average, more melting. The snow that fell in Southeast PA is not going to last there for very long. And then you'll see our system start to get its energy or start to get its act together across parts of the southern plains by the time we get to Thursday, and pulling in really quite a bit of moisture off the Gulf for that. Dew points are progged to tick upwards into the 60s across New Orleans and Texas and Arkansas. And so quite a bit of energy to work with there as this system kind of eventually progresses northeast. And we're going to see a good soaking of rain. A lot of the Ensemble products suggesting, highlighting at least the potential for an inch of rain. I saw some of the GEFS members, the mean solution anyway, suggesting about half an inch of rain for State College, but some of the other products, the actual raw GFS output suggesting over an inch. So I think it looks like a heavy rain event as we go into Thursday. And then behind that system, things start to come crashing down, and we're going to cool down just in time for the weekend. Though the good news is it doesn't look like it's going to be a very long cool snap. I think we're going to snap right back out of it, and things are trending warmer as we go into the second half of February. To compare the GFS with the European solution, things are pretty much similar as we go through the first half of this week. And then there are some subtle differences. This is the 0Z Euro. There are some subtle differences, mainly with the timing, I think, with this Euro solution as we go into the end of the week. But still, again, if you notice over PA, is still highlighting at the potential for a good heavy rain event. And then, of course, with the sweet spot for the snow, it's actually not spitting out quite as much snow across parts of the Midwest as, say, the GFS is. But something to watch for those folks there. Severe weather threat down south, and just looking like a soaking rain event here. The good news is that because we've had these thaws in recent weeks, especially last week, I think our flood threat is going to be pretty low. All right, here's a look at that SPC outlook. This is the day 3 outlook. So this is 12Z Wednesday into 12Z Thursday. So they're highlighting kind of that arclitex, as some people will call that, the arclitex, for potential for some discrete cells or supercells that may pop up and bring some hail threats or maybe a few tornadoes. Seeing that also highlighted there for the day 4. So I think we'll see more updates, obviously, coming from SPC as we get closer to this event later this week. Here's just a look at the dew points and some of that moisture that this thing is really tapping into. So as I mentioned, dew points soaring into the 60s across this part of the nation ahead of that system. Anyways, going back closer to home, here's a look at the plumes, GEFS output for precipitation, at least with this system as we go into Thursday and Friday. And so we're looking at it. The mean here is about a half an inch, but you can see the actual GFS spitting out, the operational spitting out close to an inch of precipitation here. Amounts generally on the order of, this is the mean for, say, Bradford, it's coming in just under an inch or so. On average across the state, it looks like a good soaking rain of anywhere from half an inch to an inch of precipitation, at least based on some of the latest ensembles. In terms of temperature, this is a site that I use. It used to be whenever I was an undergrad, we would use MOS quite a bit. But of course, if you're using MOS these days, you're behind. You've got to catch up and use the NBM. It seems to be the national blend of models, and it's pretty good. I use it quite frequently when I come to forecasting for WeatherWorld, as I've already made my sheet for the day. But in looking at just UNV, just to kind of get our forecast for the week, like I said, things cold tonight. As we kind of clear out, we might have a good radiational cooling setup here before we get to tomorrow. Temperatures rising to near freezing in State College. And then here's our midweek warm up. So as we go to Wednesday, we're talking temperatures probably mid to upper 40s. And then now this is going into the upper 50s for Thursday. I'm thinking at least mid 50s are looking reasonable probably here for State College before we see things come crashing down. So Friday temperatures actually will be falling probably behind that cold front that passes through. And then notice the overall trend is to start to warm back up again as we go into next week. So the good news is that this we finally broke the long stretch, I think, of cold days, and it looks like we were on a more of a roller coaster ride as we go through the rest of February with more ups than downs. Also on this particular NBM viewer, you can see some of the displays here in terms of wind and precipitation. And so just for jollies, the NBM is showing generally around 0.8 of an inch of rain or close to an inch of rain with that system as it passes through Thursday. And then behind it, the temperature crash that we see going into Friday. This is a nice view. This is part of the WPC's webpage. So if you're ever kind of thinking about, all right, well, are we looking at a record-breaking kind of setup here? And this right here shows where the NDFD forecast. So this is comparing the Weather Service's forecast to records. And you've got to do your homework on this a little bit, because I know that sometimes some of the records aren't necessarily accurate. You might have to double check this in SEACES, but it does give you a nice kind of background on what may be possible. And so going into this, we see Thursday, it's actually projecting that some of these locations here that are highlighted may see record high min temperatures going into Thursday, where the temperature reading may not fall much at all, until that front crosses going into Friday morning. So we could see the mins, in some of these locations in the 40s. So that's something to keep in mind. The record highs for that day may be observed in New England, but record highs here in Pennsylvania this time of year are generally at least in the 60s, perhaps even upper 60s farther southeast. So I think they'll probably hit the mid 60s in parts of Southeast PA going into Thursday. One other thing that is nice to look at this WPC site, just because this gives you this national perspective. Now, granted, this is the NDFD forecast, but I like to see this display, and this shows the departure from climatology. So if you're looking at, okay, so where are we seeing anomalous warmth, or are we seeing a big time anomalous chill? The color table here actually displays this quite nicely. So this is one of the things that I look at when I'm kind of getting in touch with the weather for the day. Where are we seeing the big time warmth? And today just so happens to be across parts of the plains and the Rockies. Meanwhile, anomalous chill across the northeastern U.S. And look at the pattern shift here as we go into the middle of the week. Now the big time warmth is going to be situated across the Midwest, and then by Thursday, especially across the eastern seaboard here. As I mentioned, 50s and at least lower 60s, mid 60s possible in Southeast PA, and those lows not falling very far either. When you're seeing some of those pinks and reds show up on this display, that's indicating where you're over 20 degrees above average. And then by Friday, things start to come crashing down. And, we moderate a bit for the weekend, but really, when you're getting to temperatures in the upper 30s, we can kind of compare to what is average for this time of year. And we're looking at mid 30s to mid 40s for average highs. So going back to that display, we're closer to seasonable, as we really go into the weekend. It's really not a cold snap, not like what we had yesterday and into today. And we start to moderate again going into next week. Now, this again is just the NDFD forecast, certainly not gospel, but it is a good thing to kind of use to get in touch with the weather. And we can kind of compare that to some of the forecast products. So this is a look at the Euro Ensemble over here, looking at height anomalies over here on this display. And we use this a lot for different segments when we're making more of a medium range or long range forecast for WeatherWorld. So that includes the extended forecast that we do, or 12-day trends where we're looking out almost 2 weeks. We'll kind of look to see, what is the pattern going to be? And you can clearly see that big ridge that builds across the eastern US for Thursday and into Friday before the front kind of comes through, and we see things become a little bit more seasonable, as I mentioned, towards the weekend. But notice going into next week, we start to see that warmth build right back in again for the end of February. And this does agree with the CPC forecast. They're using products just like this to make that outlook. And so the second half of February is certainly looking warmer than average across a good portion of the eastern US. And this goes all the way out now through the end of February. And you can see not really much of a change there. Certainly a big pattern change from what we've been experiencing, but it stays on the warm side, going through the second half of February. So in general, then, the forecast to summarize for the next couple of days, cold tonight. We start to moderate tomorrow, still a bit below average. And then by Wednesday, the switch has been flipped. We'll see sunshine with clouds increasing. Temperatures reach into the 40s on Wednesday, 50s on Thursday before the rain arrives. And we can get a closer look, I guess, at the rain for one more perspective here. This is just the operational GFS that came in at 12Z. And so we've got that good warm air advection starting on Wednesday, going into Thursday. It continues. We've got a warm front off to our north. Here comes the low, and it'll be kind of a parade of lows right along this boundary. And then there's our soaking rain. So probably heaviest as we go towards any time from, I would say, Thursday evening into the overnight hours. And then ending of some snow. Accumulation, that's where the uncertainty lies, because we're going to have a wet ground. Temperatures will come crashing. If there's any chance for accumulation, I think the best chance is probably going to be in the higher elevations, and it still looks like it would be an inch or less. But again, this is something to pay attention to because, of course, some track shifts may impact that. So there's uncertainty with this system still. But then after that, we pretty much quiet down for the weekend. Little clipper system passes by to our north, perhaps as we go into the weekend, and generally a benign weather pattern, beyond. So the most impactful system that we have to watch for this week is certainly going to be this low and system that comes in for Thursday and into Friday. So again, the evolution of this based on the GFS 12Z shows that severe weather threat in the Arklatex. If you believe the GFS, heavy snow threat, probably Iowa into Chicagoland, and then heavy rain threat for parts of Pennsylvania on the order of half an inch to an inch or so before we moderate for the beginning of the weekend. So with that, that is about all I have prepared for today. I hope that I shared some good tips on things that I look at when I'm preparing for forecasts for WeatherWorld. A lot of these links are things that I've accumulated from colleagues over the years, or things that I look at every day. So I'm happy to share any of my forecast links with you. If there's a product that you haven't seen before, or it's something that you have a question about, I'm happy to answer that. But yeah, I don't know about you, Kevin, but I at this point, after my walk in today, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for another warm up.
Yeah, I think, I'm somebody that loves winter and winter activities, but I think it's enough is enough. We got a nice little taste on Friday. I brought out the shorts. I mean, yeah, exactly, Brian. Once you get a taste of it, you don't want to give it up. So
now it is worth noting that, and Bill knows this as well, being the keeper of all of the cards, that we can sometimes get a good snow here in State College in March. March is when we tend to get some really good snow events. I think it's been a while, but we certainly can get a good thump.
Oh, by no means is winter over.
It's not done.
It's just we're going to postpone it until March, if that. I think what we can, I don't want to lock it in, but I think today might be like the coldest it's going to be for a long time. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but
yeah, I mean, certainly the coldest day of this week.
Yeah.
And even by the, like I said, even by the time we get to next weekend, it's not looking like it would be this level of cold.
Right. Thank you, Brian, for your contributions. You know what, though? We have been missing that big coastal storm that makes it rain on the I-95 corridor and throws a bunch of snow into like the eastern half of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like the pattern that we've been in recently, I mentioned it on the show last week. It just felt like a conveyor of clippers. It was like one after another. And they weren't necessarily high impact events. There's more of nuisance systems, but yeah, I'm looking forward to a pattern shift for sure. How about that story, by the way, with the paraglider being sucked up into a thunderstorm and floating around on her glider for an hour?
Can't believe that
at that altitude, and she survived to talk about it. I mean, I thought that was remarkable.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I can't Like, that is so hard to process because you would think that an hour up there, like, what? How do you? That's crazy. I got nothing.
Did the paraglider wake up on the way down or wake up on the ground? That's my question.
Well, that's a solid question. I don't think it actually. So she passed out. Yeah, rose to a height of 9,000 meters near the cruising height of a jumbo jet. Her experience told her she had no chance of survival, but a doctor said her blacking out saved her life because when she became unconscious, that actually your heart slows down all your other functions. So this is what, according to a doctor and according to the article that was written in the Sydney Morning Herald, but it's unclear when she came to again. Did she not? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't say. Certainly, I was going to say certainly something that she'll never forget, but she actually won't remember it either because she was passed out for most of it.
That'd be like of a wake up, just cruising at like the top of a thunderstorm cloud.
Or better yet, when you're like on your way down, and you're just
cruising at
like legitimately one of those dreams where you're falling.
Alrighty, does anybody have anything else for Rob? You feel free to throw it in the chat. Otherwise, I think Rob's hit on everything. We're gonna have midweek warmth. Hopefully Wednesday can stay a little sunny before the clouds roll in, but I'm not really too optimistic about that. But hoping for something good. Good vibes, positive vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I think I have in my graphic for today's show, I think clouds will move in this afternoon or the afternoon on Wednesday. So we might start off the day with some sun.
I feel good.
That would be nice.
Yeah. All right, Rob. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's thanks for having me.
Of course. All righty. Yeah. And I'll see you in like 30 seconds.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.